Well, we've covered a lot of reaction here on China Take to the doings of a group known in China as the Fu Er Dai, literally the second rich generation, or perhaps the second generation of affluence. Now, these are the children born into the wealth accumulated by the People's Republic of China's first generation of business people, the ones who made it big as China's economy boomed over the past 30 years once it opened up. And the public perception of this social group isn't that positive. They, along with their cousins, the Guan Er Dai, that's the children of the powerful political elite, often wealthy themselves, are generally seen as something along the lines of spoilt brats, kids born with silver spoons in their mouths who feel their wealth or their background entitle them to behave as they wish. At best, just wasting away their parents' money, supposedly studying abroad. At worst, behaving with arrogance and even ignoring the law with impunity when it suits them. But who will take over the family firm when their parents retire? Well, recently, a survey carried out by Shanghai's Jiao Tong University asked just that. It chose the top 3 private companies in over 180 different sectors and discovered that 82% of these scions of industry had no intention of filling daddy or mummy's seat in the boardroom, although a certain number did express interest in entering politics or officialdom. The survey also emphasised that the average age of the owners of these private companies, that's the first generation, is 52, and that means that in the next 10 years or so, they do face the task of appointing a successor to run the business. So, what are Chinese net users' thoughts on this report, and could this reluctance to take over have an effect on China's economy? Well, to get an idea of what's being said, let's now join our researcher, Esther Dung, in the newsroom. Now, Esther, first is the reason why these rich kids are so reluctant to take over the reins. Is that puzzling net users at all?
Well, actually, it's not the first time that people here have heard about this reluctance for the second generation to inherit the parents' business among this second rich generation. Actually, previously, at a survey taken at an MBA development forum in Nanjing, participants even put the number in even starker terms. They said 90% of business parents want their kids to take over, but 95% of the kids weren't willing. And while there are plenty of training opportunities for these kids to learn how to run a business, it seems that many of them actually have to be forced to attend these classes by their parents. In terms of why, well, a certain number of pollsters firmly believe that these kids simply have no ability to run a business. For example, Lao San Wu Meng Meng, who says on QQ.com, it's not a matter of willingness to take over the business, but a matter of whether or not they have the ability to do this. Look, over the past years, the impression these kids of rich people give is arrogance, laziness, and incompetence. All they know is how to spend the money earned by their parents. They know nothing of managing business. But some pollsters also seem tired of the omnipresent criticism of this group and argue that they also have the right to follow their hearts, like this poster from Guizhou on iPhone.com. Why do so many people criticize these kids of rich parents? Can't they pursue their own interests and dreams? And this anonymous poster can't agree more. Everybody has their own direction and dreams. After all, life is short. Why don't we do something that really interests and inspires us? Well, for a lot more, the different educational backgrounds and character traits of the 2 generations are the main reason. First, we have Liu Yang, who writes on Sina.com. Lots of these affluent second generation kids are smart and hardworking, and lots of them have overseas study experience and are greatly influenced by foreign education and culture. They are more interested in capital operations than the manufacturing industry, which their parents have worked in. And also Mao Lixiang commenting on Hexun.com. Compared with their parents, these kids don't have such a strong sense of responsibility to think for and make sacrifices for the company. Their motive to do something is to pursue their own interests and realize their personal value, and they don't want to live in under such pressure.
Okay, Esther, quite a lot of analysis on the reasons there, but whatever the whys, this phenomenon is definitely real. Is it being seen as a bad thing or a problem at least?
Well, on this question, pollsters' opinions fall into 2 groups. One group sounds quite happy and optimistic and thinks it's good for both the private companies and for those kids who have no interest in family business. 不屈的天蝎 says on Weibo.com. The second rich generation's reluctance in taking over the family business isn't a bad thing. On the one hand, it will speed up the transformation of Chinese family firms into modern companies. And on the other hand, it will reduce the risk of the situation from clogs to clogs in only 3 generations. And Jackie has this take in his blog. For me, it's wise of these kids not to inherit the family business. For example, in Zhejiang province, which is famous for its business culture, the entrepreneurs do have lots of wealth. But what they have done is build up labor-intensive and low-value-added industries, which have passed the golden times of making profits, and some of them even face the possibility of bankruptcy. But another camp feels quite concerned and worried about the situation that lots of private businesses will be left without successors. Xu Haoran addressed on that MBA development forum I just mentioned. In the next 5 or 10 years, 3 million private companies will face the problem of handover. Currently, over 30% are estimated to go smoothly in handing over, while the remaining 70% face lots of problems. And in some cases, the crisis can even threaten the company's survival. And Zhao Shuming has this. The average lifespan of Chinese private companies is 3.5 years, while that of the overseas private companies is 40 to 50 years. One of the biggest obstacles to cultivating long-lasting Chinese private companies is exactly the lack of a successor. As private companies play a more and more important role in today's economy, finding successors for these companies is not only a problem for the companies, but also for the whole of society to think about.
So why is it so difficult to find these suitable successors here in China? I mean, there are lots of private companies all over the world. They should face the same problem, but they don't seem to. What's the particular difficulty here then?
Well, I'm afraid it's got to do with Chinese traditional culture. There is an old Chinese saying which goes, nourishing water won't flow into the farmland of others. For Chinese parents, it seems not leaving all their wealth and their position to their kids, especially to the son, is almost unthinkable. And that, it seems, is another reason that China has developed such a mature market for professional high-level managers and CEOs who are recruited in from outside the firm, as in the US. This means it's not that easy for the company owners to find a proper successor outside of the family. This poster from Canada says on 163.com. The professional manager system can't solve the issue of trust. Chinese people lack trust in outsiders, so it's impossible for the company owners to give their business to strangers. But a lot more feel that with the development of the economy and society, these private company owners should learn to be more open-minded in this aspect and to appoint people on their ability and merits, like this anonymous poster on Sohu.com. The owners of private companies should have a broader horizon. If their kids do have interest and the ability to run the business, it's okay for them to take over. But if not, they should try to find professional managers. And this system will no doubt start to be a trend in China.
Okay, one last thing, Esther. Another interesting aspect of this survey is that some of these affluent second generation people, although it doesn't make clear the exact number, aspire to becoming politicians or becoming government officials. What do net users say about this political ambition?
Well, based on the comments I've seen, political posters think this reflects the cruel fact that in China, having power means having almost everything, so that so many people are scrambling for it. For example, this poster from Hebei has this to say. Well, being official is certainly better than being a businessman, because as officials, they can have money and almost everything they want, and they don't have to work so hard as a businessman. And this poster has another approach in his or her blog. In the subconscious of Chinese businessmen, they still adore and even worship power, because during their process of setting up companies and accumulating wealth, from getting business licenses to the administrative intervention, they need to kowtow with the government at almost every step. Businessmen have a clear and deep understanding of the relationship between business and power. Well, finally, this poster from Beijing is quite unhappy with the obsession of power, commenting on 163.com. A society where power is worshipped has no future. By contrast, if the development of culture is valued in a society, then that culture and people's spiritual lives will flourish. By the same logic, a society where people are willing to be industrialists will no doubt have an energetic economy.
Power and absolute power, I suppose. Thanks for that, Esther. And that was China Take researcher Esther Dung with a reaction to an apparent reluctance on the part of sons and daughters of family firms in China to take over the hot seat. Coming up next, China's top searches. What's hot and trending on China's search engines?